The students were randomly split into 4 groups for this event. Each of them was to enter the small makeshift town from the north, south, east, and west entrances. The layout of the town was like a plus sign. There were several buildings and small alleyways, but larger pathways crossed each other in the center. Layla was at the north entrance, and by luck, it seemed like there were a few others that she recognized with her as well. The annoying blonde-haired girl along with the brother and sister pair. Just my luck to be put in the same group with them. She took in several deep breaths for some reason. The nerves were getting to her. Usually she was quite good at calming herself down in these types of situations. Her mother would always tell her that one would only get nervous if they cared about what they were about to do. Does that mean I care about this lame event? In truth, she already knew the answer. I just have to get through the first round. If I can do that, it will prove I could do something on my own, and I'm not just some burden on everyone, Layla said to herself. Just don't get eliminated. Just don't get eliminated. You can do it, Layla. She carried on repeating these words to herself as if it was some chant. The more she said, the less likely it seemed to become a reality. Although she was going against Pure's wishes, they hadn't even bothered to explain to her what they had planned to do, which had irritated Layla quite a bit. Going against their orders, she would at least like to pass the first round to prove to herself that she can do it, and then she would immediately eliminate herself from the second round with no problem. One more day in the event couldn't hamper their plans too much, and it wasn't like they cared if she didn't. All right, and let the event begin. The buzzer signaled the start of the event, and students from all 4 entrances had entered the small town. Above the arena, a holographic display of the countdown had begun. Some students had split off immediately from the group and went on to look for their hiding spots, while others already had a few targets in their minds. And Layla had a sneaking suspicion that she had become one of those targets. Right on her back, out of the corner of her eye, she could see the blonde girl and the brother and sister pair. Although this was a singles tournament, it looked like they knew each other beforehand and had decided to team up. While looking around, Layla noticed that this was a tactic that had already been implemented by many. A lot of people were running together in groups rather than alone. Did they decide this beforehand or just now? It was too risky for Layla, and she didn't know anyone else in the competition. All her friends were on the outside, and if she teamed up with people now, how would she know if she could trust them? Hoping her suspicions were not right, Layla decided to stop going along the straight path and bolted in between 2 buildings down an alleyway. However, just like she had expected, the other 3 had followed her. Why? Why did you have to target me? What did I do? Is it 'cause I look weak? She said in anger as she gripped her bow. There were now only 15 seconds left on the timer before participants were allowed to hit each other and eliminate them. That's not fair, Quinn shouted at the screen, seeing that Layla had 3 people on her tail. Why are they grouping up on her? Quinn, you should know better than anyone that this world isn't fair, not the way it is right now anyway. It's not against the rules, so let's hope she doesn't take this loss hard, Vorden replied. Look, you can't count her out just yet, Vex said positively. She can still turn this around. Still, both Quinn and Vorden knew the reality. It was 3 against 1, and they were all also higher ability users. The only chance she had was to try to run into another group of people and hope the 2 of them fought it out, allowing one group to eliminate the other. But Layla wasn't even thinking about this tactic. She never thought of trying to use another group to get rid of the one on her trail. She was too focused on trying to figure out how to get rid of them all by herself. If she didn't, she would have felt even more useless. She finally decided to enter a small building and headed straight for the stairs. At least this way, she could face them down the stairway one by one, as it was quite narrow. When she reached the top, she turned around the corner and waited. Beep! The sound of the buzzer had gone off, indicating once again that the students were now allowed to attack. Come on, I need to survive the first round at least, and even if I don't, I'm taking one of you with me. She gently peeked around the corner, but there was no sound, not even footsteps could be heard or shuffling of any kind. Have they given up? She thought. Just to make sure, she fired an arrow and twisted it around the corner with her ability, hoping to hit anyone on the other end of the staircase. Ding! A little bell sound was heard, indicating that a player had been hit. A broad smile appeared on her face. When attempting to move, she looked down at herself and noticed that her red chest piece had turned black. She was the one who had been hit. "Hello?" a high-pitched voice from the right side said, sounding a little distant. When she looked outside, it seemed like the voice was coming from a glassless window on the other side of the room. She was on the second floor, and if one were to climb up from the side, they would have either made plenty of noise or exposed themselves to the many other students. Yet she had heard nothing. Popping her head outside of the window, she could see the blonde girl being lifted by her other colleagues, with wings on their back. They were flapping back and forth, allowing them to pick up the girl to reach the window. As much as she wanted to shout out in anger at the girl, she couldn't. Layla had lost fair, and she hadn't even put up much of a fight. "I'm sorry," Sam said, seeing that one of their friends had been eliminated. Not only that, but she was the very first student to be eliminated as well. "Come on," Quinn said. "There's no need to watch this anymore. Let's head back to the hotel, and we can try to cheer her up." He had hoped that Layla truly didn't care about the event. However, he felt like even if one didn't care, it would still be pretty embarrassing to be the first one to be eliminated. In the past, she had helped him many times before, and without her, Quinn wouldn't know what his current situation would be like. He wanted to be there for her right now. Being eliminated from the event, Layla left the field and was allowed to head back to her hotel rather than the underground slot. She had made sure to sign out and return the equipment given to her, and proceeded to write her name down on a digital tablet. When she grabbed the pen, she was able to see that she was the first one to have written down her name, confirming she had returned the equipment. Quickly, a digital signature was placed and she walked off heavy-footed. She took the elevator that went directly to the top of the arena. It was a little walk from where she was, since the underground facility looped around and had several places along the way. The elevator from the arena floor allowed one to go straight into the hotel lobby, as they expected some students to want to rest straight away or cool down before doing anything else. The ride up the elevator felt like it was taking forever to reach the top. When she had lost, she didn't know what emotion to feel. She had tried so hard, and the only thing she wanted to do was get past the first round. When finding out she was the first participant to be eliminated, it hit her even harder. "I am useless," she said, as tears started to roll down her cheeks. "Everyone was right. Vorden, Pure, my mother, that girl. They all told me several times that there was no reason for me to be here. Aaron, where are you?" she cried. As the elevator made a ding, indicating it had reached the top floor, she made sure to quickly wipe her tears away with her sleeve, for fear that there might be someone in the hotel lobby that would have spotted her. When the elevator doors opened, Layla took a step forward and was surprised to see a single student standing in the hotel lobby, not too far away from the elevator entrance. The purple hair covering her single eye, and her face could be seen when she turned around. "Sia?" Layla called out. "I've been waiting for you, Agent 100, Sia replied. When her eyes met with Sia's for a brief second, Layla was quite pleased to see someone was waiting for her. When Aaron had disappeared and left them, it felt like she had no one to lean on, no one to confide in. Aaron had been the strong figure that Layla wished she could be, and yet it was something she would never be able to achieve. However, when she disappeared, Layla was a little lost. She had Quinn, but after finding out she was with Pure, their bond was a little broken. There was also the fact that Vorden would constantly get in between the two, and kept trying to fraction that relationship. In the middle of all these events that surrounded her, there was a little ray of hope, and that was Sia. After the last portal expedition, she had seen a scared little side to Sia during that time. She seemed afraid of Quinn and the others, and was confiding in her due to that. Layla, when seeing this, was seeing a version of herself when she looked at Aaron. In a way, it made her believe she needed to become a stronger figure to know that someone was relying on her instead of the other way round. This time, she would be a pillar of support for Sia. That was until the words spoken out of her mouth were like 1,000 knives had been stabbed right in her back. There was a straight look on the young woman's face. Her tone was serious. "I've been waiting for you, Agent 100, Sia greeted. There was now not a doubt in her mind that there were only two groups of people that knew her identity, Pure and Quinn's group. However, what Quinn's group didn't know was her agent number, and her ranking had recently just dropped as well. The fact that Sia knew this confirmed that she was part of Pure herself. "I know you might be shocked, but it was all because of Agent 5, Sia explained. Agent 5. This meant Sia being close to her was all of her mother's doing. Suddenly, a realization was coming into her head. From the very beginning, since she had entered the academy, Sia had been her roommate. They had specifically told Layla that she was the only agent that was sent to Military Base 2. Was everything a lie? Now she didn't know what to believe. Was her new friendship with Sia fake? Was her acting scared an act? What was worse was how much did she already know, and how much were they reporting back to Pure? Her mother hadn't trusted her to even complete a mission like this, so they had to send backup to look after her. When there was a bond of trust, it went both ways, but her whole life it had always been one-sided. She trusted her mother with Pure's true intentions, even though she had so many questions. She trusted her mother when going through the hellish training that she felt was torture. She trusted her mother when she had told her life would be better in the future. Yet, she didn't trust Layla. After everything that had happened so far, something had snapped inside of Layla. Layla walked right past Sia, ignoring her. "Wait, what are you doing, Agent 100? Sia asked, a little shocked by Layla's actions. "Don't call me that! I'm not a number!" she shouted back. "I have a name, and I have a pretty good one." At that moment, the automatic doors to the hotel lobby opened and walked in Quinn and the other boys. They could immediately see her bloodshot red eyes, but had mistaken them for sadness instead of anger. "Are you okay, Layla? What's wrong?" Quinn said as he rushed over, placing his hand on her forehead, checking if she was all okay. "Idiot! Why didn't you come sooner?" she said. "And your hands are cold." At this moment, the full waterworks had come out, as tears of waterfall started to fall, and her head was now lying deep in Quinn's chest. "Hug her, dude," Fex whispered in her ear, while the other two boys pretend to look away and whistle. Not knowing what to do in this type of situation, he listened to Fex's advice and gave a firm hug to Layla as he tried to calm her down. "Quinn," she cried, "I don't want to be useless anymore. I don't." "Layla, when have I ever said you were useless?" Quinn replied. At this point, Vorden had decided to step away, knowing full well he had said that a few times. "You have done nothing but help me from day one," he replied. Seeing the scene, Sia didn't know what to do. She had still not even finished explaining the details of the upcoming plan. Agent 5 had assigned her the task to look over Agent 100. No matter what was to happen, this was her only mission. But right now, she couldn't interrupt this scene. "Layla," she tried calling out. "Go away! Go away!" she screamed. At this point, the others noticed that Sia was standing behind her, and seeing this strange reaction, Vorden started to wonder. He found it strange that Layla had broken down like this over the event. Sure, she would be upset, but was it such a big deal? "Hey, she doesn't like you being here, so just scram," Vorden said. "I can do what the hell I want," Sia snapped back. "You're not my boss, and you're not a teacher," she said as she continued to walk forward. "Just remember, I know about your secret, and yours," she said as she pointed at both Fex and Quinn. Sam, who was currently a bystander at this point, didn't have a clue what was happening and was finding it hard to follow along. "It's like I've been transported into the middle of a soap opera while still in the middle of a season," he thought. Sia walked forward, not caring about anything. However, after a few steps, she suddenly could no longer move. Something seemed to be restricting her movements completely. Then a breath was felt behind her neck. "I would like to see you try to tell anyone about that," Vorden said, in a sinister voice. It was the first time she had heard him speak like that. She could see his hand pressed against her throat, with nothing but a chopstick pointed at it. Perhaps others would have laughed, but the deadly aura coming off of his words, she knew it was no laughing matter. Looking ahead, she could see another person who had his hand held out steady, with all his fingers pointed. "Now, why would you choose to threaten us?" Fex said. After hearing the words she spoke, he felt like this was the worst time for anything to be revealed. If the humans had found out what he had transported into, not even his sister Silver would be able to save him. That's why the instant she had moved forward and made the threat, he had activated his strings to hold her in place. At the same time, he immediately saw Vorden and the move, and carefully made sure to allow the strings to not restrict any of his movements. However, Fex soon realized he didn't need to do much, as it seemed like Vorden was able to see and move away from the strings of his own accord. He's a skillful one." At this point, Layla had nearly stopped crying. Quinn still had her held in her hands. She pushed away slightly from his chest and looked up into his eyes. "Quinn, please, I don't want to go back to them," Layla said. "I want you to turn me. I want to stay with you. I want to be stronger." To Sam, it looked like Layla had just made some type of confession. Although it sounded weird based on everything that happened, it was the only thing he could think of. But Quinn very well knew what she meant. She wanted him to turn her as he did with Peter. He was very hesitant, especially after what had taken place with Peter so far. But what happened with him didn't mean the same would happen with everyone. After all, his own life had changed quite a bit, and Layla's was in a troubling situation. He had already figured when she had said she didn't want to go back to them, that being with them was preferable to Pure. Changing her meant she would be leaving Pure and going to his side. Leaving a big organization like that wasn't simple. One would need the power to fight back, and Layla didn't have that. "Very well," Quinn replied. Quinn placed both of his hands on top of Layla's shoulders and moved her off slightly to the side. When Quinn agreed to turn her, she was ecstatic. The sadness surrounding her was lifted. Maybe this was the big change she needed in her life. "Thank you," she said as she sniffled a little bit and rubbed away the last few tears. Of course, right now wasn't the time to change Layla and go through the blood ritual. She was well aware of that. They were in the middle of the event, and there was always the chance the same thing that happened to Peter could happen to her. It was best to wait until they were back at school where Logan could access the black market in case she did turn into a ghoul. "Ladies and gentlemen, the fighting event will soon begin," the speakers announced. The sound of the crowd outside beginning to move was heard. The crowd cheered louder than before, and it could even be heard from the back of the hotel lobby where the group was. This announcement and the reaction made it clear it was the most anticipated event out of the main three. "Nate," Sam said in a rush. "Sorry, guys, I gotta go watch my friend. It looks like you guys have things handled here anyway." Although many things were happening in front of him, he hardly knew this group of people and was just helping them out for the time being. What he wanted to do now more than ever was go and support his true friend Nate. "I'll come with you," Logan said, as he was equally concerned about what might happen to Peter, and one of them from Quinn's group needed to inform them of what was happening. The others didn't have to worry about it too much. With Sam, it just looked like some type of strange invitation, and nothing was ever mentioned about Quinn being a vampire or any sort. All that was revealed was that Quinn and Fex had some type of secret. Seeing the level 1 on their wristwatch and how confident they were, he probably guessed it had something to do with the fact that they hid their abilities, yet were in the school based on being weak. This was something he could report to the school if he wanted to, but he saw no reason to. Not being in the same military school, he would have had no benefit from doing such a thing whatsoever, not that he would have even bothered in the first place. The two boys quickly left together and went ahead to the screen 2 areas, while the other 3 were left behind. However, after hearing the announcement, Fex was equally worried and wanted to leave as soon as possible. There was a good chance his sister would be watching the fight. Depending on how close she was to the arena, she would smell out Peter, or there was even the chance of Peter revealing some of his powers, giving him away. The problem was that he was the one holding Sia right now. "You two can go as well," Quinn said. "I can deal with her on my own." Both Vorden and Fex looked at each other from the other side. It was the first time Quinn had requested something like this. He would often ask for their advice in situations like this, so they found it a little strange. Did he already have a plan? "Are you sure?" Vorden asked, still keeping the chopstick he had in his hand, close to Sia's throat. "I'm sure," Quinn said. "Honestly, I haven't given up on Peter yet. I need you two to see if there's any way of saving him, any gaps in their routine if we can ship him off. I know it's unlikely, but even if we can't, at least we can find out what they plan to do to him, so we can get revenge later on." It was the first time they had heard Quinn declare that he had planned to go against the military in the open like this. Saving one's friend from them was different. He was now clearly saying if he couldn't save them at one point, he would punish those that did this. "I like it," Vorden said with a smile. "I agree," Fex said, as he let the strings loosen and returned to him. Vorden quickly ran over, and the other 2 had left the hotel lobby as well. Quinn quickly looked at Layla and just gave a slight nod, indicating she should go off and follow the boys. Before leaving, she whispered something into Quinn's ear. Sia started to look around the room to see if there was any way out. The hotel lobby was quite large, and the area they were in was near the elevators around the corner from the reception. It was a good 20 meters before they could be in sight of anyone. She then looked up at the top right-hand corner where a camera was present, but she also knew this was useless as well. There was a specific reason why Sia had chosen to meet Layla here. The camera here had been disabled already. In the security room it would just show a loop, and also it was far enough from the reception area where no one could hear or see them. With no choice and the others gone, she felt she could only do one thing. A spirit spear formed in her hand, and she quickly threw it out towards Quinn. Straight after, she tried bolting it towards him, as she wished to run past him and head for the exit, or at least the reception area. Moving to the side, avoiding the first spear, Quinn then went ahead to Sia. Another spear was thrown, and this one hit him directly in the stomach. "Yes," she said, knowing full well that Quinn would have been slowed down, but it was useless. Quinn wasn't even using his full speed. Half a second later, he was already directly in front of her, and he quickly threw out his hand, grasping his fingers tightly around her neck. Even with the debuff, he was now faster than any normal human. As she looked into Quinn's eyes, she could see, for some reason, that there was great anger. When the other two had left, she thought the most troublesome ones had gone. Instead, it looked like the worst one was left behind. He knew from the conversation earlier that she was pure, and before Layla had left, she had told him not to worry about the cameras. "What is Pure planning to do?" Quinn asked. "As if I will tell you," she croaked out again. Why was it that she seemed to be getting strangled all the time by these psychos, she thought. However, what she was also surprised at was the fact that Quinn knew about Pure. Did Layla tell them everything? How much do they know? When she asked for him to turn her, what does she mean by that? To stay with Quinn, does this mean she's chosen to betray us? I must inform Agent 5 immediately. She started to stretch out her fingers to reach into her back pocket. Inside was a communication device. Maybe she wouldn't be able to talk out in the open, but if she were just able to turn it on, they would know something was up. No reply was a sign that an agent would be in trouble. Quinn's eyes started to glow even redder now, as he had activated the influence skill. You better hope this works this time, otherwise I have no choice but to get rid of you. Sia looked into Quinn's deep red eyes, and her body was frozen in place. She didn't know why. Please work, Quinn said. I don't want to kill again. Again? Sia heard now, fearing for her life. The four others had just arrived at Screen 2. They went ahead and sat down in the seats, ready to watch the fighting event. It seemed like there was quite a bit of preparation work to be done, so thankfully, the fights hadn't started yet, and they were busy explaining the rules to the audience. When looking out on the field, 10 slightly raised circular cylinders went up from the floor to as high as the first row of audience members. Keeping their eyes level, they were watching from their seats. This allowed for nearly the perfect view for those sitting there. The flat-top surface of the cylinder would be the fighting platform for the participants. There were a few ways to lose in the fighting tournament. Your opponent would be knocked off the cylinder platform. One was to be knocked out, or the referee, who would also be on the cylinder with them, would declare one of the students a winner. When looking out on all the cylinders, Fex could see his dear sister on one of the platforms. Of course she had to be a referee, he said.
Hi, Quinn here. Wondering what happens next? If you want to jump the queue and unleash all episodes, click on the link here and install the Pocket FM app.